Hi, welcome back to the next part of the Dana build, or I actually should call it, give it its official title now, which is 155mm SPGH Dita. And as you can see, there's been a significant change. We're at the next phase now, we're at the next stage of the build. And what I mean by this is the chassis is built, the superstructure is built and welded. I would say 90% of the detailing, things like little handles, panels, are all on. There's obviously going to be that last 10% where a lot of these panels are turned into different things. So, for example, this is a grill. This is going to be a grate, like a vent system. Now, there's a lot you can't see from this angle that's going on in here. And in a minute, I'll kind of move the camera around, and you'll get to see other bits and pieces. But probably the most significant thing that you'll notice, it's all been primed. Now, obviously, this goes through loads of stages. This is a high build primer that's going on here, and the way it kind of works is obviously we put the primer on, we flash it back, we look for any areas that aren't really appropriate, scratched or damaged or holes. They'll get filled. It'll get sanded back again. Another coat of primer. I'll probably put about maybe 2 or 3 coats of primer on it before it's ready for paint. And then obviously at that point, the fun is going to start, because the patterning or the camouflage that I've decided to use, and again, I think it's going to be quite hard to see on the camera, but basically it's going to be this triangular geometric pattern. I'll bring that a bit closer and then you might be able to see this geometric pattern. So it's going to involve a base coat put on, then an awful lot of masking and the colours put on. I'll also go through the particular paint that I'm using, which is absolutely outstanding paint. And I use it all the time now. This paint is fantastic. So that's this. What else? You can see this odd little bits. I'm going to say from the angle, holes put for the external fans that are going to cool the electronics. And then I was detailing on the back of the cab. As I mentioned before, I've moved these. So obviously these all operate, we know that, but they've been moved a bit wider so they don't impact on the gun. There's a few holes drilled all around, and these holes are going to be for the LED marker lights that are going to go on later on. So obviously better to have that hole now. Loads of detailing added with the hinges and the rivet marks. And obviously there's an awful lot of detailing to put on with rivets, and that'll all be added at a later date, probably after the base coat of paint has been put on. Now you can probably hear my voice is a little bit croaky today. We've had a mega kind of few weeks with just shows and all sorts of things going on. Some of which we can put on YouTube, some of which we can't. But obviously, I think you've seen some of the shows we've been doing at the NEC with Tiffany, which have just been great fun. They've been really, really good. And also, it's given us a few ideas of how we want to develop the Tiffany robot, our resident Terminator Tiffany. And I'll share those in another video, what we're going to do there. You can't see the turret. The turret is over there. I'll pan the camera around in a minute so you can actually see the turret, because there's been a significant amount of work done on the turret and on the gun and on the firing system as well. And yeah, so the next stages, if you like, the next phase of what's going to happen here is just basically rubbing down, finishing, filling, and getting the final coat of primer on. And then once that final coat of primer is on, we can start thinking about colour. And then obviously once colour goes on, once that's on, we can then get the glass in, we can get the detailing on, all the rivets fitted onto it. And at that point, obviously there's still more bits on the wheels, painting the wheels and stuff like that. Then the electronics starts to go in, and then that's when it comes to life. So here you can see a little bit of detail, and this is the kind of the detailing on the back of the cab. And this is kind of representing the cooling system, the extraction systems that are fitted to these vehicles, made with just computer heat sinks fixed onto the back of the cab. Really, really simple, but it actually looks really, really effective. So as you can see, the turret has all been primed and it's been finished, and it's had a couple of sanding coats done on it. So it's almost ready for its next coat of primer. Now, as you can see, what has a significant move forward is with the gun system as well. Now what I'll do is I'll just remove it. It's just all lightly fixed in at the moment, but it's now a little bit more awkward because it's a bit heavier now. Let's just do this. Let's grunt and groan a little bit before we can get this thing out. It probably weighs, the barrel system probably weighs in, or at least will weigh in, at probably 2, maybe even more, yeah, 2, maybe 3 kilos once it's finished. Now, as you can see, the recoil system I've been working on, and I think I've cracked the recoil system. But now what we've got is a fan system mounted in here, and the idea is this will move back, as you can see, and as that moves back, we can then open the firing breech to get to the loader. The loader goes in there mounted with the blank charge. It will be locked in place. The fan is brought back over the top, and then basically when this fires, obviously this will be activated by the servo that sits here. When this fires, when the pin is removed, the blank charge comes into the barrel system here, and that is then forced with the air system here out of the barrel, and we get a very nice flash, and we get a very nice puff of smoke coming out the end. So that is the gun system, or the beginning of the gun system, that is then fitted into the turret that you can kind of see here. Did you ever watch that program? I think it was called How Do They Do It on I don't know what channel it was on. It just made me think about this. The other day I was having a go with one of those welding trainers. I don't know if you've ever seen them. They're incredible. The idea is to teach young people about how to weld, and what you have is you have a screen, and your helmet is effectively a video screen. You put it on, you're given a torch, and then when you weld, arrows come up to show you whether you are in between the lines of the weld, you know, to get everything right, penetration on the weld, heat, angles, all that kind of stuff. I had a go on it. Amazing bit of kit, and I can see how it would teach people how to weld. Apparently there is a shortage of welders. I really didn't know that. I genuinely didn't know that. And the welders that are out there, usually the age that I am, you know, young people aren't getting into doing this, which doesn't surprise me, given that, you know, you don't do this stuff in school anymore. I think I actually learnt to solder and braze when I was in school. But anyway, there is all that, the training element to it, but then there's the reality of making things. You're in a workshop. I must admit, when I had to go with the training thing, I didn't have gloves on. And of course, when I'm in here and I'm welding, I've got gloves like this on, which I can't quite feel my fingers. They're really bulky, which, funny enough, you learn to compensate with welding and getting good welds. And yeah, I suppose you can replicate that in the training. But then little things like this. I'm building, let me just find, we've got one of these. Now what this is a smoke machine. I don't know whether it will work. Let me just see if I can actually power it up. I don't want to produce too much smoke in here, otherwise I won't be able to see anything, but here we go. Look at that. Woohoo! I better stop it, otherwise I won't be able to see anything. These things are absolutely awesome. This is a slightly larger one. It's got a bigger battery and it's a little bit more powerful. But you can get smaller ones as well. But the idea is that is going to be mounted inside the turret. And then it'll be vented and controlled by radio control. But I need to mount that in so it doesn't fall over. Now, the problem with those things is it's got liquid in them. So if they do fall over, not so great. Which means I've had to make up a small bracket, an L-shaped bracket, which I've now got to weld inside the turret. And then the access space to weld into the turret is that. So basically what I've got to do is the bracket's in there. I've got to basically get the torch into this space to weld. Once it's into this space, I'm massively limited on my movement. Obviously, I'm welding like this, so I can't quite get in as close. Yes, it's an auto darkening mask, but there's no light in here. This is completely black, it's completely dark. So the entire process of doing the weld is by touch. it's by instinct. And to make things even worse, I'm using, I think we up the base to about 3 mil. I'm welding in plate that is about 1.5 mil. So different thicknesses of materials. Also, the base has been primed a couple of times. I can't get a grinder in there to clean off the metal. So I'm have to clean it off with some sandpaper and with a file. So the metal I'm welding to is dirty. So I've got everything going against me. Limited access, dirty materials I'm working with, different thicknesses of materials, absolutely no visibility at all. But yeah, hey, that's welding, isn't it? That's welding in the real world. So yes, I love this training kit, but can it replicate that? Can it replicate when you actually have to get down to it and, you know, in a perfect environment, you get a perfect bead and a perfect weld? I don't know. But the kit was incredible. I must admit, I was seriously blown away by it, seriously impressed. And perhaps if I'd learnt to weld on one of those when I was a bit younger, my welds would look a lot neater than they do now. However, my stuff generally doesn't fall apart, it stays together. So, better get back and do some work now, hadn't I? And stop dreaming about being earning apparently a great deal of money being a welder.